On his YouTube channel, former AEW star Fuego Del Sol said this about his time working with MJF. "This is not going to be good. People aren't going to like me for this, but if I'm honest, I'm not a fan of this guy, to be real. I'm just not." We're talking about the current AEW World Champion MJF. When I say I'm not a fan, I should reiterate that I try to never let my personal opinions get in the way of someone's actual talent. He's talented as all hell, incredible promo guy. When he does decide to wrestle, he puts on incredible matches. However, early on in AEW, way before I even got signed, he gave me one disparaging remark in front of a lot of people backstage, but it was offhanded. I'm sure he doesn't even remember it. I do though. Some people are going to go out of their way to critique you or congratulate you or help you out. He kind of stuck to himself in that regard. Never really talked to me outside of his disparaging remark, and so I don't think we're each other's cup of tea. However, that doesn't change the fact that he's insanely talented, and I will never, ever, ever, ever let my personal opinions of someone get in the way of how good they are. He's great. Touching on the differences in wrestling talent today compared to those that were around during the Monday Night Wars between WWE and WCW, Goldberg told the Chicago Sports Podcast, "The internal storylines I don't think are better. The characters I surely know aren't better. The guys that are doing their thing right now and leading the charge, they're doing a damn good job. They're just not deep. That's all. They just aren't deep. It's hard to have a couple of different people carrying the flag and be able to hand it off to a proper person and I'm trying to keep this as vanilla as possible. It's tough to have the depth. I think they're lacking in that area. That's all. Period. End of story. I don't like getting into it. I don't like people talking shh." Speaking about the injury her husband, TJ Wilson, suffered, Natalya said this on Insight with Chris Van Vliet. "He can't do anything that would require him to take a bump, so we can show little techniques, and TJ is like a wrestling savant. I think the same way that Daniel Bryan did. He sees the industry and wrestling and everything. Like, he could ask him about a finish from a Bret Hart match that's very obscure. He'll be able to tell you. He could tell you any single girl's moveset. He could, if you said, 'TJ, when did I have that match? Who was it against? What arena? What town?' He's like that with moves too. He just knows how to dissect it and pick it apart. He was working with Nia Jax on something, and he was just helping her figure out exactly how to do it so that it was just perfect technique. And I was like, I didn't even know TJ ever knew about that move, and he's just so gifted and he's so good, but he just can't bump. And that's the thing when you have an injury like what TJ had, where it's a C1 injury, and not everybody's familiar with what a C1 injury is, but it is where TJ broke his neck, was at the base of his brain. So it's where like the brain and the spinal cord meet. So it's a very, very vulnerable area. And the actual medical term for that injury is called the hangman fracture. So when people say, "Oh, TJ, we want to see you get back in the ring," and they see that he is very healthy and he is in very good shape because he had a C1 injury with a C1 C2 fusion, he just can't take a bump, and he has to be very careful. So he can't ever come back to wrestling. I mean, he can do stuff, he can do stuff, but he can't take a bump. It would be really dangerous. Going over the future for Jade Cargill in WWE, it was said that Ringside News previously reported that WWE has a plan in place for Jade Cargill. They had the entire writing team pitching creative ideas for her prior to even announcing her signing to the world. That being said, WWE has big plans for the former TBS champion. Ringside News reached out to confirm that WWE has plans for her in-ring debut. When we asked why WWE is putting Jade Cargill on all three brands at this point, the response we received was, "Wouldn't you want to make sure everybody knows that WWE signed Jade Cargill?" Explaining why she has not opened an OnlyFans account, former WWE star CJ Perry told House of Wrestling that, "I'm not on OnlyFans because my husband said I would get papers in the mail if I did it. This is the compromise. And also, I think, I can't say he likes it. I can't say that he's fond of it by any means. But life is life, so there's that. It's always a catch-22 with him. And I have to remind myself on a daily basis that he's Bulgarian, he's not American, and so often I forget, even though I lived over in Eastern Europe, and sometimes I just have to go over there and I'll be there for a month, and I'm like, okay, I've become very Americanized, very westernized, very like Kim Kardashian, independent woman." As heavyweight boxing champion, Tyson Fury is set for 2 matches this year. He said this about potentially making a return to WWE, telling Sports Illustrated, "I've been doing boxing for 15 years, which is a long time. I know it won't last forever. And it's true, I've had a few good stints in WWE. There is still a lot of opportunity there." When talking about his ongoing recovery from a stroke he suffered back in February, Jerry the King Lawler told Sportskeeda, "I've had a bunch of different things and I'm still in rehab 3 times a week, and probably the main thing that's drawing me back now, that you can probably tell as you hear me talk, my voice is not the same as it was beforehand. It's slowly coming back, but it needed to come back a little more before I could make sense with my speech and vocabulary." Explaining her husband Nick Aldis' decision to not sign with AEW, Mickie James told TV Insider, "It's really interesting. When I was back at WWE, there was an opportunity for Nick to go to AEW. He turned it down because it was too much on our family for him to be on the road full-time along with me. Our son Donovan was 3 or 4. I think about it now, and it has shifted. Nick has deserved this opportunity for a long time. A lot of people don't realize he has been at this for almost 20 years, I'd say, the way our careers have gone. It's weird not really being in the same place for long, but I think it's by design. We have to do our best for our son first. That means someone has to have a lighter schedule. Business picked up for the Aldis family in the wrestling world. If people don't know who Nick Aldis is, they will. He is an incredible talent." Going over her time spent in WWE, Alicia Fox said this on Elijah Burke's The Pope's Point of View podcast. "We are independent contractors. They borrow our bodies. More importantly, y'all are wrestlers, either trying to go to the machine or most of us are trying to still run so far away from it. The thing is like they're not the only machine in town, and they haven't been. So what is the nostalgia about? Because human nature, by its nature, can experience nostalgia for the past. No wonder the wrestling fans are like, oh my god, wrestling, no matter where they are. As long as that particular company has been doing blackface and our bosses have been doing these characters, it makes sense to me now why they were treating me like this. For me, I didn't study the history of wrestling going forward. I lived that experience linearly. I did what they told me to do. I drove those hours. I was on a tour bus with my fiance being driven around. I also wasn't bringing camera crews in to exploit my friends on an already exploited agreement." Reacting to Sting announcing his retirement, Eric Bischoff said on his Strictly Business podcast, "Happy for him. I think anytime somebody who has been in the public eye and in a career like professional wrestling in particular has an opportunity to end their career the way they want to under their own terms, that's always a great thing. I'm happy for Steve Borden. I'm happy for the fans who've been a fan of the character Sting for a long time. When it plays out really well and is all said and done, Steve Borden is sitting on a rocking chair in Dallas, Texas, watching the sunset, where he can look back at this part of his career and smile, because that's what it's all about." Bischoff also said this about a possible uptick in viewers due to Sting's retirement tour. "Hard to say, depends what they do. What's the build-up look like? Is there a story leading up to it? How much promotion does it get? How much attention does it get? Remains to be seen. Do I think it can? Absolutely, I think it can. Do I think it will? Who knows? We'll find out." Recalling the hateful comments she would receive from fans following her WWE release, Nia Jax noted on After the Bell, "I obviously can't deny that I get a lot of hatred online. In the beginning, I thought, oh, this will be good, the character will keep going on, but at the end of the day, when you're by yourself and you're on your phone and you're looking at the constant hate, then you're second-guessing yourself. I'm second-guessing everything that I've done. I need to improve. I need to do this. I need to impress them. The internet is really hating what I'm doing right now, and it really messed me up. It got me into such a sad place, and when I got released, I was like, yeah, of course, why not? I suck. Everybody hates me. There's no need for me to be here anymore." During an interview, Brie Garcia, known as Brie Bella in WWE, said this about making the move to All Elite Wrestling, telling the Not Skinny But Not Fat podcast, especially because, my husband's at AEW now, but I'm still surrounded a lot by wrestling because he and we talk about it all the time. He's fully in it, and he just had an incredible match this Sunday at their big pay-per-view, All Out, and I watch everything, and when I see the women wrestle and all that, I always am like, Nikki said, you get fired up. Brie then said, I know, AEW's for sure more hardcore. Nikki replied, they have less rules, I would say. They're allowed to bleed and hit each other with certain objects. Brie added, I for sure would be open to leaning into that style of wrestling. I definitely have it in me. Nikki then said, we want one last run, especially when our sons are a little older and they can sit and watch their mommies kick ass, and if my surgeon allows me to. Brie then noted, because of her neck. On that same podcast, Lacey Evans talked about her experience in WWE with taking certain photos. I seen y'all face down, ass up. I'm like, hey, if that's what we're doing because that's what they're doing, then I'm going to learn how to do it. To be honest, I don't like that I had to post sexy photos of those bikinis on Instagram. I hated it, but sex sells. Beautiful women sell in WWE and outside of WWE, at car shows, whatever the case may be. But at least now, and Mandy, you and I are a lot alike in many ways, at least it's now on a protected site where you have to be an adult, so I don't have to flush my sexy content now on Instagram. Since it's a protected site, I don't have to worry about babies whose parents aren't doing what they need to do. They're running wild on Instagram. Mandy Rose added, what you said earlier, to piggyback a little bit, my character, I was the sex symbol. I was a home wrecker. I'd come out in a towel, stealing your husband. Like you said before, your ass was out and it went viral, all of those things, because when they couldn't monetize off of my sex selling, whatever you want to call it, see you later. Strip the title, future endeavors. Have a great time. On the official AEW roster page, Brock Anderson, the son of Arn Anderson, is no longer listed as a member, as it remains to be seen if he will return to the company. WrestleZone wrote that Mike Johnson of PW Insider then reported that Brock Anderson has left AEW. Johnson cited a source who noted that an internal issue shared the news of Anderson's departure on October 20th. Per Johnson, the belief is that Anderson's contract expired, and the door is open for him to be used down the road. In an update on Matt Riddle, who was released from WWE during their previous round of cuts, the Wrestling Observer newsletter said, regarding Matt Riddle, his people have already been in talks with a number of pro wrestling, MMA, and boxing companies regarding working there. The only two that have come out are PFL and Bare Knuckle Boxing. Nothing can be announced until December when his non-compete ends, and yes, his non-compete does extend to MMA and boxing. Touching on the possibility of The Rock having a match at WrestleMania 40, the Wrestling Observer newsletter said, regarding the stories that WWE won't do Rock vs. Reigns at Mania if Rock wants to do it, what we were told is this: if he wants the spot, I can't believe WWE would turn him down, but after Johnson turned it down last year, nobody is going with the idea he's going to do it this year. The match is not scheduled, unlike at this time last year when the match was considered a good shot. The belief is that Johnson will have plenty of work once the strikes are over. He'll have plenty to do. What we were told is that Rock is not going to come back and win the title. I never anticipated that would be an issue, as if the match was to happen, I always figured Reigns to win and Rock then retiring in the ring. Once again, the USA Network has teased the return of CM Punk to WWE, quoting his theme song when replying to a picture of LA Knight as it reads, "Look in his eyes, what do you see?" Of course, the last time USA Network did this, they commented best in the world to a picture of Nakamura performing the GTS, Punk's finishing move. as it's been previously reported that WWE is aiming to have Randy Orton, who has been away from the company due to needing back fusion surgery in September of last year, back in action by Survivor Series, WrestleVotes added. Regarding the Randy Orton return rumors, source states new merchandise and branding has been approved. Also, WWE will present a large social media promotion and digital material for the comeback. It's indeed happening, likely Survivor Series or that weekend. Revealing how CEO of Endeavor and TKO Group Holdings, Ari Emanuel, views Vince McMahon's role in WWE, the Wrestling Observer newsletter wrote that one person close to the situation said that Emanuel has a vision for how he can use the worldwide notoriety of McMahon, and that vision doesn't include him micromanaging the weekly television shows. This is all subject to change, and if there is a downturn in popularity, the idea of Vince being back in the spot isn't inconceivable, but it's not likely to happen now. For a long time, there was fear that the loss of McMahon, because he was the man who built the business, could cause the stock price to decline. But when McMahon left the company and brand popularity continued to increase, that fear Wall Street once had was alleviated. If anything, when McMahon returned in January, the stock price was more likely to drop, except he returned and brought up selling the company, which led to excitement around the stock and a rise in price. Talking about Triple H taking over on the creative side of WWE, the Wrestling Observer newsletter added, almost everyone would say it's more of a good thing than a bad thing from those with knowledge of the creative situation prior to the merger going through and McMahon taking a medical leave. He was making changes in the show, particularly Raw, fairly regularly. At times they were viewed as positive and at times they were not, but they did get in the way of the long-term vision of the creative team. Much of the talent, certainly most of whom we've heard from, felt it was better when McMahon wasn't involved and were loyal to Levesque. The company's comeback did start under McMahon coming out of WrestleMania, but there's no doubt it accelerated greatly in late 2022 during the period McMahon wasn't with the company. But business remained strong when McMahon returned. While one can point to Raw ratings being well down from last year, that's largely due to football competition being stronger. SmackDown and NXT remained strong in the ratings. The arena business remained strong. Big events are selling tickets quickly at continually higher prices, and many markets continue to set gross records. To the public, the only real difference would be that a lower percentage of what is advertised in advance for television changes without McMahon in the mix. Some still changes that is not injury related, but it is less than before. Talking about rumors of him potentially getting involved in WWE again, heavyweight boxing champion Tyson Fury told ESPN, "WWE's too hard for me. Boxing is much easier than WWE. It's very physical and taxing on the body. WWE getting slammed on the floor and all that sort of stuff. I'd rather move around the ring and dodge punches. I've been boxing 15 years as a pro. I'm going to be prone to injuries, elbows, knees, shoulders, ankles, everything that can go wrong on somebody usually at our age now that goes wrong." And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.